Let's look at distance in the courts here from that paper. Distance in the courts. So the first quote is from an article where a guy needed to live 1,000 feet away, and the basic article is kind of saying that there was some sort of situation like this where here's the street, another street, and let's see, so this is 43rd Street, and oh well, yeah, 8th Avenue, so I guess 43rd is going this way, maybe, could be, an 8th, we'll say, is going this way. And, and the person's maybe here in this dwelling, and I think it's a school is up here, here, so school, home. And I'll believe their calculation when they say, okay, this is 746 feet along this road, and then you turn and go another 490 feet up here. And so if we put those together and we find our distance is square root of 746 squared plus 490 squared, we are told that that distance, so from here to there, is 907.63. So we could check that. Not going to. So almost 908 feet, which is less than 1,000 feet. And so they're saying this person can't live here. But of course, the defense is saying, well, but you can't walk this way. There's a building in the way, right? So they're saying, oh, okay, so there's this big building. Here's the footprint of the building. Road goes this way, road goes that way, and so you can't walk like that. And so they're saying you should use this taxi cab distance. Oh, there's my phone. I'll put this on pause. Alrighty, so yeah, I don't get phone calls very often. I do give blood though, and just, maybe this is sharing too much information, but hey, this goes down forever on video, I guess. They were just confirming my appointment to donate, so we'll go back to taxi cab distance here. And so they're saying, hey, we need to go this way and that way, and so we should use taxi cab. But if you read it, the ruling in this case is actually kind of interesting. I'm not sure that they would say, they're saying that you have to use Euclidean distance, so back here, so we'll write Euclidean back here, Euclidean distance. I'm not sure they're specifically ruling that you have to use Euclidean distance, but that's probably what they're saying. But I would say they at least are saying that The problem is that the defense is saying, well, the person could only walk, here and up here. And, well, we don't really know that, right? So they're saying the building's in the way, but it could be that, hey, there's a door right here. And, maybe this is kind of an open mall or something like that. I don't know what the building is, but, you could walk maybe not straight through it like this. Maybe you would have to go out a door here, so maybe you would have to go straight in the sense of the angles of the building. And then you would come up here, but maybe that's less than 1,000 feet. And so, I would say they're at least giving the possibility that a person could use a path distance. Okay, so a path distance and get there in less travel. Okay, because what they say is, well, you can't, when you legislate something, you really can't know whether, for instance, a building might be open. So for instance, maybe on weekends, whatever this building is, you couldn't go through it, but on weekdays you could. And so if you're talking about a navigable path, well, then this is a perfectly good path. And maybe on weekdays during school, you could use it. And so you would have this shorter distance. And so, given that you could never know specifically what that navigable path is in writing the law, they're saying, and that path may depend on time of day or something like that. They're saying, well, we'll just go to the easiest thing to determine, which would be this Euclidean distance. And so you can kind of see where they're coming from, but on the other hand, it's possible that you could use navigable path, right? So, and I think many of us, if we actually put ourselves not even necessarily in the position of someone who's been sentenced to something like this, but just, as you think about how far it is somewhere, you probably think of a navigable path. And so, here we have a choice of Euclidean, navigable path, or for that matter, we could always go with taxicab. Now, the reason actually I don't like taxicab, I would tend to call that no good in defining something like distance in this particular case, is I don't like that because, now does this mean sidewalks and streets only? Right, as far as this taxi cab, because you could imagine a big open space, a park, where you could walk across the grass and it might be very close, but if we're only talking sidewalks and streets or something like that, which often that would be a case for taxi cab, that would be a little strange. And the other problem is, plenty of cities don't have all right-angle streets. All cities and towns and so forth is if you're walking along a sidewalk or a street, it may not actually sit on the grid. And so, using a definition like taxi cab in this particular case is probably not the best, but either a choice of Euclidean or, sort of the shortest navigable path, and you might put the word reasonable in there, either of those are very fine choices. And then we get, to our second case. And, in the second case, again, you get to sort of reasonable, but I don't know, it's kind of a strange thing. So as you read the second case, it appears that, what we have is a river. So there's my river flowing like this. We've got our school here. I think it was a school. And we have a home here. And they're very close this way, but the way you would have to go is you'd go up this street, across that bridge, and down this street. And so, again, here, I think, the question is, okay, are we talking Euclidean, right? What should we use? Euclidean or navigable path? And again, here, now what did the court cite? Well, I tried looking that up, actually very recently. So this is an older court case, but I tried looking that up. And the best I could find was actually the ruling wasn't based on distance. Okay, so we don't know what they would have come up with. The ruling in this case actually turned out to be that the person had been convicted and released and so forth before the law went into effect, and so the Supreme Court of Ohio decided that it couldn't apply to someone who had already been released, and so nothing was done about distance. But that's the best I could find was whatever happened with that case, and it appears, the best I can tell, is the ruling had to do with when the person was convicted, released, and so forth, and then when the law, the distance law, went into effect. So they never had to address this question of Euclidean or navigable path. But even here, the question is, what are we looking at? And it's interesting that that when we think about this, that some of our choice or some of our decision process, may include time and trouble as part of distance. Okay, because I'm up here, and I want to go from the home to the school, and it's across this river. Well, they never, I don't remember what river it is. I'd have to look back at the article, but, you look at this river and, could I walk across, could I wade across that river? Well, then, it's pretty close to get across here, but that's kind of some trouble to have to wade across the river. Say it's, even, not that deep, but even, say mid-calf deep. Well, do I really want to get wet to go across there? So there's, because I certainly could. I could walk across, right? So in that way, it's very navigable, but should navigable include the trouble I have to go through? Or, maybe it's a relatively wide river, and, me personally, I canoe a lot. So when I think of something like this, I think, well, I could jump in my canoe and go across the river. But depending on the size of the river and so forth, if you think of something, I don't know how many of you have seen, say, the Mississippi River in some of the more southern states. It's a big, wide river. And, so certainly could I canoe across the Mississippi River? Oh, yes. But the amount of time it would take me, it would be much, much quicker to just get on the road and drive. And so we run into that idea of time and trouble that could be included in the decision process of navigable paths. And again, we just get into, now this isn't either of these court cases, but you run into the idea of, here's a home, and maybe here's this one school, and here's another school, and now suppose this school is 800 feet away, but in order to get there, I would have to travel this way, and down that way, and by the time I get there, maybe it's 2,000 feet. Okay, so, you look at something like that, and then I got this school that maybe is 1,100 feet, and I can't, and the weird thing is that, if we simply go by Euclidean distance, well, all of a sudden a person maybe can't live there because of this school down here. Yet, that school is not the one the person's going to go to. They're going to go to this school. Okay, now, when I say that, why would I, well, in the sense of, if I'm just going to minimize my distance to a school in order to, say, sell drugs or prey upon children in some other way, right? Well, I'm taking the 1,100 feet versus the 2,000 feet. It's almost just half the distance, right? But yet it's this school that's keeping this person from being here. And so, one could say, oh, well, as long as some school keeps them from being there. Well, that's not the point. The point is that we have really sort of a contradiction in the sense that a person is told not to be here because of this school, yet that is not the school that is in the most danger. And, if you say, well, just 2,000 feet, well, change it to anything you want, keep this at 800, but, put a big, huge river in between, and maybe it's 2 miles, so that's getting up around 11,000 feet, 10 and a half, 11,000 feet. so 10 times longer to say go around here because of needing bridges and things like that. Yet, this is the school everybody's worried about. That makes no sense, right? Not in practical terms. And so, you can get into these strange things if you're not careful about what you mean when you define something like distance. And so this, I think, I just want to bring this about and remind that, again, Euclidean distance is the most conservative, oh, I forgot a V in there. Okay, conservative number. Now, by that, I mean it's going to be the smallest number, or it's going to restrict things the most, right? Because it's always the shortest distance, so it will restrict things the most. Okay, restricts things the most, at least in the sense of these sort of laws, or what's that region, and it's actually because it's the shorter distance. So we want to remember that, and that can be a good thing, but it can also create some very sort of strange things that maybe we don't want. Okay, this, and I would say something like this is sort of strange. And so I'm not necessarily, saying, well, we should go back and look at anything that involves distance and reword it and that sort of thing. But what I'm mostly trying to get you all to understand is it's complicated. Okay, and it's complicated in a social sense. Not necessarily so much in a math sense. It is complicated there as well, in that, well, how do we actually compute these things and so forth if they're not just straightforward. But in a social sense, right, where we are talking about where a person lives and where possibly vulnerable people are, and that sort of thing, it begins to matter a lot, because as they kind of try to make out in the articles, hey, we worry greatly about these vulnerable people here at this school, but also we do need to make sure we're not in some ways making matters worse, because as the article points out, I think the second article is that, well, if you get too limited in these situations, like the homes, well, people may go underground and not register and so forth. And well, then now, given law is doing the opposite of what you wanted it to, sort of an unintended consequence. And now the question is, well, if we went to a different definition other than Euclidean, would it make things any better? I don't know. See, that's the problem. Again, that's why it's very complicated. I don't know the answer to that. But it is a question worth asking. Just because we don't know the answer doesn't mean we shouldn't ask the question, right? That's, in many ways, that's exactly why we should ask questions, is because we don't know answers. And so, this is a big deal socially. We're making laws. We have court cases and so forth based on it. And, and it really comes down to a choice. Okay? We are making a choice, probably most of the time, between Euclidean or navigable path for distance. And if one decides that Euclidean is the answer, great. Okay, but you need to have a reason to decide that, right? It's not just that, well, the shortest distance between 2 points is, this Euclidean distance. Well, in some ways, that's not really true in real life, right? Because I can't just jump over a river, or I can't go over a mountain or through a mountain. And so all of a sudden, the shortest distance to us, how we get there, might be this navigable path. And so it's something we should pay attention to. And distance is just one of the many things that we define and use that's quantitative and mathematical and so forth. There are many others. In this class, at this point, we are simply starting with distance as an example of something. Okay, so a lot being said about these couple of little articles. It is very possible you think I am, going overboard, beating a dead horse, as they say. But it's a big deal, okay? And it's a big deal mathematically. Let me go back again, to this. Making that choice, we have options. Mathematically, we have options, and those options have consequences to our actual lives. And so, that's part of math, is math is realizing we make definitions, and we, and then we use those definitions. Well, and using those definitions in mathematics, who cares about real life? They have consequences once we've defined something a certain way. Well, then we take that to real life and we get these consequences. And so, again, a lot of this course, I am trying to get you to realize that all this math, when people say, oh, we use math all the time in real life, and you can't figure out when that is. I agree. It's kind of hard when all you look at are equations. How do we use that in real life? Well, here is a case we're using math in real life. And so, I do go on about it, but I think that is one of the most important things we're trying to get out of this course, is that we do indeed use mathematics in real life, and we use it in ways that affect a pretty good portion of our population. Okay, so I'll end it there. I'm sure you're very happy. I'm going to end it, and we'll keep going from there.